Okay, we are in week 13 of the semester. This is legal research. We are going to be covering chapter 16 in your text, which is legal correspondence. You're going to notice that your assignments now are going to be worth more. You're going to have fewer assignments that are worth more points. And then your final is going to be one other kind of a written assignment. It's going to be a legal research and writing assignment, and it'll be putting together everything that we've done for the whole semester. Okay, so week 13, let's get started on legal correspondence. There's different kinds of correspondence, but we're going to focus on letter writing. And I don't care if you're doing a traditional letter or if you are sending an email, you still have to follow certain norms for letter writing. And again, let me caution you, if you're sending something as an email, you must have permission from your client because it is, by definition, not secure. Okay? So let's just focus on how to do a traditional letter. And if we send an email, lots of times what we're going to do is do the letter and send that letter as an attachment to your email. So it's still going to be the same format. First of all, you sort of have to prepare to write a letter. And this is kind of a theme, right? You need to know who you're writing the letter to. And why is that? Well, if I'm writing a letter to another attorney, I'm going to assume different things than if I send a letter to a client who's never dealt with the legal system before. Or maybe my client is a CEO of a corporation and they have dealt with these legal issues before. So kind of understanding who your reader is the first step before you even start putting this letter together. Why does it make a difference? What kind of language are you going to use? Remember, we've talked about you want to be precise in your language so that you are clear in your communication. What kind of tone am I going to send? Okay, maybe I'm sending a demand letter to opposing counsel. That's going to be pretty matter of fact. If I'm sending a letter to a client, getting them prepared for a deposition, I'm going to have a different tone. I'm going to be more explanatory. I am going to not be so terse with my words. So again, knowing who you're writing to and what the purpose of the letter is kind of the first step before you even put a keystroke, letter to paper or keystroke for your computer. Okay? Now, again, what's the purpose of your letter? Every communication should have a purpose. I don't care if you're talking or writing. We all know people who talk just to hear themselves speak. Oh, and we love being around them, right? We know we've gotten texts or emails from people and you look at it and you're like, and? What's that about? Because they weren't clear in saying what the purpose of the communication was. Anytime you communicate verbally or written, you better know what the purpose is. Because when you're done speaking, the person who's listening, or when you're done writing, the person who's reading what you've written, better know why they were even bothered with this communication. I teach oral communications too, and written communications. So one thing that I harp upon is that people want to feel respected. When you don't feel respected in the course of any communication, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, doesn't it? You don't really like the person that said or wrote to you. You really just don't feel good about that communication. And part of that is because time is important to you. It's important that you utilize the short bit of time that you have in your day to the best of your ability to either accomplish things or do things that you wish to do. When you're reading something and it's a waste of time, get rid of it. And then when you get an email from that same person again, or a letter from that same person again, you're like, what do I care? They're just wasting my time. Your time is important. Don't underestimate that, especially when you're working. Time is money. I know it sounds cliche, but it really is. Attorneys bill their time. You are going to keep track of your time. Then the attorney will choose whether to bill the client for your time or simply pay you and then bill the client in a different way. But time is important. If you are wasting someone's time, that is a way of showing that you have no respect for them. That's a bit of a leap, isn't it? Think about it. It's not. When someone wastes your time, you feel uneasy, you feel unhappy, and that's because you could have been doing something else you wanted to do or had to do, right? When telemarketers call and you can't get them off the phone, you're like, you're wasting my time. I don't have much time. Nobody has much time. So keep that in mind. Choose your words carefully, choose your tone carefully based on who you're talking to, who your audience is, and what it is you have to say. Okay, so now there are the elements of a letter. How do you put it together, right? The mechanics, as we've been talking about. Okay, you're going to have a letterhead. What's a letterhead? Stationery. It's stationery. With the law firm's name, address, email, fax, and phone number. Letterhead is important because off the bat, it tells the reader, who's this from? Right? Government agencies have letterhead. If I'm sending a letter personally, I will, at the center top, put my name, address, phone number, email. Just if I'm sending a letter, to the school principal, not in my business capacity, just as an individual. It is important. It sets the tone of the letter. Again, these are business letters we're talking about. We're not sending a thank you note for grandma's Christmas gift. This is a business letter. The letterhead tells you that. Okay? Under the letterhead goes the date. Why is this important? Well, if you are in business, you have to track progress on a case. Everything is put into a file chronologically. Some law firms will scan it into a digital file. Others will keep a paper file and a digital file. Doesn't matter. It's all kept chronologically. So from a receiver's point of view and a sender's point of view, this is kind of a timestamp. It's also important that you make sure that the date on your letter matches the date the letter was sent. Sometimes I'll start to write on a big letter and I'll come back to it. Maybe I'm citing some case law. Maybe I just want to sleep on the language. I better change the date on there because then the reader is going to say, what the heck? The dates don't match. That doesn't make sense. Did they sit on this letter? They don't know that I just wanted to make sure the language was good and I just was sitting on it for 24 hours. You want to make sure that it matches. Okay? Now, you're also going to have special mailing notation. So if I'm emailing this letter and sending it by post or by overnight, underneath the letterhead on the right-hand side in all caps, I'm going to put sent via email and ordinary mail, or sent via email and overnight mail. Why do I do that? Well, because I want to have a record in case someone questions, hey, I didn't get this letter. Well, I know I emailed it to you, and my email says that it was received, so where's the problem? But it needs to be on the face of the letter so that you're not looking at a judge saying, I sent an email. Well, prove it. Your word means nothing. Prove it. And if you have it on the letter, then you can go back and you can look for the email confirmation. Okay? The same thing if it's sent overnight, there will be a receipt. Okay? Now, on the left-hand side, you are going to have a reference or a subject notation. Usually this will be capital R, small e, colon. Reference. What it really means is Latin re, Latin lesson for the day. The word re or R-E-S or R-E means the thing that you're writing the letter about. Okay? So in the old days, if you put re, everybody knew it was Latin. Now nobody talks about Latin, even though it's really important. And they say, oh, well, that must mean reference. Okay, whatever. It's what the letter's about. So the left-hand side margin of your paper or your screen, you are going to put RE colon. Now, what comes after that? Maybe the client's name, a file number, a case number, some way to reference whatever you're going to be talking about in this case. If I'm sending a letter to a client, I might put, the name of a case, Smith versus Joan. Maybe it's about depositions, checklist for whatever date the deposition is going to be taken. Okay? We just need to know what you're writing about. Why do we put like the case number or the file number? Well, because someone's eventually going to have to file that letter, and it helps them put it in the right place. Okay? Underneath the reference or subject notation, you are going to put the full address of the person to whom you are sending this letter. So if I'm sending it, as your book says, to Ms. Donna Higgins, I'm going to put under that her address on Grandview Avenue, San Diego, California, zip code. I'm going to put all of that there. Why is that? Okay, sometimes stuff gets mixed up. Maybe I'm sending this ordinary mail and my envelope doesn't match the return address or the sender's address. Wait a second, which one's right? Maybe I have a stack of letters that are going out and maybe it just got the wrong. It's another check and balance. It's also nice for the reader of the letter to look at that, and maybe if it's sent to Ms. Donna Higgins and it's not the right person, that person can get it to Donna Higgins. Maybe within a company. Maybe Donna Higgins used to be in this office and she's not anymore, and so they move it around. Okay? So it's important that you have that in there. Then finally, underneath that on the left-hand column, you're going to have the salutation. Dear Mr. or Ms. Not Dear Carol, Dear Tom. It's a business letter. You have to be formal. Now, having said that, if I am specifically sending this to a client and I want the client to be more at ease and the client is more at ease with me, in the letter itself, I'll say, Dear Ms. Smith, and then when I sign the letter, I might put Pam, her first name. But I'm going to handwrite that in so it's more personal so the client knows I read the letter, we have a first name relationship, this is a business letter, but just so you know, when I talk to you, I call you Pam. Okay? But as a rule of thumb, it's Mr. or Ms. Now, here's a pet peeve of mine. Mr. is an abbreviation for a real world word Mr. Mrs. is an abbreviation for a real word Mrs. Therefore, when we abbreviate, we put a period at the end of it. Right? Mr. M.R. period. That's an abbreviation for M-I-S-T-E-R. Mrs. M.R.S. period, which is an abbreviation for M-I-S-S-E-S. Mrs. what the heck is this stupid Ms.? Because it is Ms. And I can tell you, a child of the 70s, I grew up when Ms. was invented. Ms. was because people didn't like to be called Miss. Miss means you're not married. Mrs. means you are married. And there's not that delineation for Mr. Even though they're idiots, and there is. Master is for a young man who's unmarried. Mr. is for a man who is married, but MR abbreviates both. Big deal. Okay? So Gloria Steinem and the gals decided that they were going to change the English language. They were going to create a new way to talk to women, and they are now Ms. So you don't know if they're married or not. Ms. is not an abbreviation for anything. It is not short for anything. Therefore, you do not put a period after Ms. By the way, if you can't tell, I hate it. But it is what it is. One of my pet peeves is that people put a period after Ms. and your book does it, which ticks me off. But it is what it is. What if I don't know the name of the person I'm sending it to? What if I can't say, Dear Mr. Smith, or Dear Mrs. Smith? But I know I'm writing to a county commissioner, or I know I'm writing to a deputy registrar. Dear Commissioner, Dear Deputy Registrar, whatever the title is, that's what you're going to put. Okay? What if I really don't know? What if I'm just writing to an individual? Dear Mr. or Dear Madam. That's all you put. Okay? I know it sounds very old English, but that's what you do. Okay? And we've already talked about this when we talked about punctuation. We are not going to put a comma after our salutation. Again, not grandma. You put a colon. Dear Mr. Smith, colon. Dear Commissioner, colon. Okay? That tells the reader we're all business. Okay? Then we're going to skip down and we're going to put the body of our letter. This is where we write the substance, the purpose, what we want to communicate in the body of the letter. Okay? After we're done saying what we need to say, we're going to put a closing in our signature. Generally, if you're doing all your margins on the left-hand side, you can put your signature there, but generally you're going to put it just a little bit right of center. Very truly yours. Sincerely is okay. My favorite closing is respectfully. Why? Because you don't say respectfully in a letter to grandma. It tells the reader we're business. And by the way, I respect your time, so I didn't waste it by writing this letter. Better pay attention. Okay? So, sincerely or respectfully, comma, there will be a space, usually 4 spaces, and then your typed name and title. Okay? Then you will sign it, and you can either scan it and email it as an attachment or send it through the mail. Okay? What if I have some attachments? What if I have a copy of a subpoena or a copy of a deposition transcript that I want you to read before you have your own deposition? Below our closing left-hand margin, I'm going to put ENCL period. Stands for enclosures. Again, it lets the reader know, hey, don't stop, turn the page. We got some more goodies for you. And if there aren't any enclosures, because again, things happen, then that person can either call or email back and say, hey, it said there were enclosures, I didn't get any. Okay? It is a way to have clear communication that's accurate. Okay? Now, your book goes through several types of letters that attorneys' offices generally write. The first is general correspondence. Again, you're going to use that same format. Typically, this would be to a client or maybe to a court reporter because we're scheduling a deposition. And you can look in your book. It's very simply written. Okay? One thing that I will point out is if you look at below the signature, it says CC and then somebody's name. CC in the old days was carbon copy. We don't use carbon copy anymore. It was easy, but we don't do it anymore. But it still stands for that. It just means somebody's getting a copy of this letter. Okay? So if I'm scheduling a deposition, I need the original letter to go to the court reporter, but then also go to opposing counsel and my client. Okay? So it doesn't have to be just one name. And it could be that you have lots of names, and that's okay. It's okay to copy letters to a person or more than one person. Now, what you can do, which is kind of sneaky, and I'm not really a fan of it, is if you see BCC, that means blind carbon copy. What? That means that the person that this letter is addressed to has no idea you got a copy of it. If you work within a corporation or if you work within, a law firm, sometimes you want your supervisor to see what it is you're doing, but the client doesn't need to know that. Or if you feel like, I'm not really sure this person's on the up and up, you want to make sure that another person is reading your correspondence. Okay? So that's BCC. So there are also cover letters. A cover letter is, hey, I'm sending you more stuff, and here's a list of all the stuff I'm sending you, and enclosures will be on the bottom left-hand side of the letter, just again, so that the reader knows, turn the page, there's more coming. Okay? A status letter, where you are letting a client know where you are in the case. When I worked in my first law office, I would come in the last Saturday of every month, and I would go through all of my files. I had roughly 200 files, 200 clients, and I would do a status update letter for every single one of my files. It was a pain in the tushy. But you know what? My clients loved it, because they knew at the end of every month they would get an update from me, like clockwork. And if they had questions, they would make an appointment to come in and see me. But it's important to have great communication with your client. Managing expectations and making sure you have great communication with clients, key. So status letters are a way, and I wasn't unique. Almost all lawyers do that. Okay? A demand letter is a specific kind of letter that you will do for demanding that opposing counsel or an insurance company makes a certain payment. When you are in personal injury work, for instance, you will write a demand letter to the insurance company, and you will lay out, look, my client was injured by your client, these are the injuries, these are the medical bills, this is what the doctor says, these are permanent injuries, here's the verification. It's a nice thick stack of stuff. And you outline all that and you say, and if you want this case not to go to trial, this is how much money we demand. That's what a demand letter is. Or if I have a client and we have a zoning issue or something with land, I may send a demand letter saying, cease and desist, stop what you're doing. You're infringing on my client's land. Okay? Whatever it is your client wants, you can demand it from opposing counsel or from an insurance company or from a homeowner if they're not represented by counsel. And you say, this is what we demand. You better have some kind of substance in your letter that says why you think you're entitled to that. But that's a very common letter that gets written. Okay? Now, your book also goes through opinion letters. Opinion letters are where we're kind of doing legal research, and we're writing a letter maybe to our client saying, hey, this is what we think the status of the law is, and this is what we think based on the status of the law we need to do with your case. Okay? It's important in your opinion letter to make sure you lay out all the facts, because maybe you got something wrong and they're going to read those facts and say, actually, that wasn't it. And then you're going to lay out all of the conclusions that you've come to, and then where those conclusions come from. The case law is, statutory language is. Okay? And your book provides, kind of segues, introductory parts of sentences like applicable law provides, we've researched the pertinent statute that governs this, it provides, legal authorities are in agreement that, okay? Make sure that you are very clear and concise and know your reader when you're writing an opinion letter. If you're writing an opinion letter to, say, in-house counsel at a corporation, very different kind of opinion letter than if I'm writing to somebody who this is their first experience with the legal system, right? If I'm writing to an attorney who works for my client, the corporation, I'm just going to lay out the cases with citations and everything. If I'm writing to just a client who has no idea what this whole thing is about, I have to take a step back. They're going to look at a legal citation and say, what in the world is this? Okay? Your goal is not to make somebody feel stupid. Your goal is to inform. Okay? Do not be condescending. Make sure that at the end of the letter, you make a recommendation and say, let's make an appointment and talk about this. Because remember, communication, communication, communication. Okay? All right. That is this chapter, just on writing letters, which, by the way, when I was in practice, I probably spent, 3-4 hours a day doing letters. And that didn't count the ones that my legal assistant would write for me that I would just review. It's a huge part of the practice. It is practicing communication skills. Make sure, again, everybody wants to feel special. Do not make someone feel stupid. Biggest thing ever. Do not. Even if you're writing to opposing counsel and you can't stand them, you're not helping your client by being snippy with them. Okay? You're really not. You have to find some kind of common ground. You have to be able to communicate with them as a surrogate for your client. Okay? Make sure that you use the right letter formatting. Again, it's a business transaction. It's going to get filed. People 20 years from now are going to read your letter. Make sure it looks good. Okay? And make sure that you attach things when you say you have enclosures. Make sure that if you're sending in an email, it's an attachment in PDF format to an email. Don't write the email and say, hey, this is my letter. Say, attached, please find correspondence on this topic. Boom. And it's in PDF form so no one can change it. Okay? Lots of times, especially when emails first started to come out, people would not put their correspondence in PDF format. They would just send a Word document to opposing counsel and they would change it. Yeah. Imagine that. It's all trackable, but they all thought that they were smarty pants, and they weren't. So, okay, you have one assignment this week and one discussion. Both of them are already posted. If you have any questions, please call me, text me, email me, communicate with me, and we can work it out. All right? I hope you enjoy doing this assignment because you're actually writing a letter. Okay? Thanks so much.